Hey everyone, my name is Lindsay and I'm on staff with Magnified Giving, and I am excited to be here today with Alex, Kelly, and Keith. And we are going to talk about education as a social cause. So, to jump right into it, I'd love to ask each of these guys to introduce themselves and the mission of their organization, and they'll tell us a little bit about how it relates to education. So, Alex, would you mind kicking us off?
Sure. I'm Alex Coons, Executive Director of UpSpring. Our mission is to empower children experiencing homelessness through opportunities for education and enrichment. And so for us, we believe that education is the way to break the cycle of poverty, and that's why our programs are so important.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Kelly, would you mind going next?
Yes, I'm Kelly Crow, Director of Development with Stepping Stones. And our mission is to increase independence for individuals with disabilities. So we're serving children, teens, and adults. And probably, obviously education plays a role in all of our programming, but one of our pillars of programming is a school that we operate on our grounds for students with severe autism that have been unsuccessful in a traditional school environment. So students with significant behavioral issues, mostly nonverbal. And so we have our own school called StepUp on our property for students up to age 22 who qualify under kind of that umbrella.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Keith?
So I'm with SquareOne. Our mission is to uncover, educate, support, and inspire emerging entrepreneurs and leaders. We used to do that in the community after working in a few economic development type positions. And now, after a little bit of experimentation, the last 6 years, it's been probably our primary program to go into schools and teach entrepreneurship to students. We primarily focus on high school. This summer, we're actually reaching into middle school and elementary through some camps we're doing jointly with some of our partners. And we feel like, the skills that come with an entrepreneur, they benefit these kids no matter what they end up doing in life, to be able to innovate, come up with new ideas, and just think out of the box, our skills employers are looking for. And so when we tie that to the education they're already getting at school, we hope that we're creating, like I say, leaders and future entrepreneurs.
Very good. Thank you all. So students who are watching, as you can tell, we're coming at education from a lot of different perspectives with these representatives. So that's exciting. The first question that I'd like to ask for you guys to kind of collaborate on and share, could you tell us what is the impact on the community of supporting education as a mission? What are the ripple effects that you see throughout the community when you're doing the kind of work that you're doing specifically around education?
I could start since I was last on the first question. So supporting education you can just see the impact and how students react differently for us to opportunities. Being able to come up with ideas is one thing, but being able to communicate, to be able to talk to other people, not only about ideas, but about where they come from in general, you can see it. And I think there's a lot of things, education, how we've known it has been kind of the same for a while. So the way that nonprofits can come in, bring new elements to what kids are learning in schools and help kind of broaden their perspectives, I think is invaluable.
I'll stay here going in the middle, I guess. So I think for us specifically as it relates to the StepUp program, there are, a number of service providers, in Greater Cincinnati that provide programming for individuals with autism. What there aren't a lot of are providers serving that niche of those with severe autism and behavioral issues. So for us, I think that education gives these kids an opportunity while they're still of a typical school age to come and be a part of our program for an opportunity to really thrive, hopefully in a way that, their public school district or even their private school opportunities weren't allowing. And part of that is just the funding structure of schooling and that sort of thing. But these individuals we're serving are, like I said, largely nonverbal with pretty significant behavioral issues. So each one of our students has their own one-on-one aid in the StepUp program, as well as, intervention specialists. So they truly have the individualized attention that they need. And so, there's a lot of different folks in the community providing different services, and that's kind of our niche. So I think that's kind of where we fit in, and we get referrals from other agencies and vice versa, as far as kids who would do well in our program. And then also with the ability to stay in until they're the age of 22, gives them just that extra little bit of time, 4 years or so, to continue working through their plan and developing those life skills and social skills that we hope will enable them to go out into the world and be independent to the extent that their situation allows.
Well, I'm obviously very biased, but I think education is one of the most important things that we have in our society. It's the great equalizer. It's the one thing that you can be given and can't be taken away. If you've learned it and it's in your brain and you have it. And, with those things in mind, I think the impact on the community of educating those who are, in our case, in poverty, it really, like I said, it could break the cycle of poverty. Whatever one's parents have achieved, it's very likely that one's kids will achieve similar outcomes. And so when we're looking at families that are in poverty, if the parents are struggling to make ends meet, we know that it's likely that the kids will struggle as well. Rates of high school graduation are very low for kids experiencing homelessness. Some students are changing schools 3 to 4 times a year. So we're trying to fight those adversities that come upon our kids. And we think that keeping them connected to their education will allow them to really get that leg up, to have a job that, earns them a fair wage when they become an adult, and to make sure that they're happy. In the end, that's what we're really after, is to see happiness and folks, having a place in society that feels comfortable and that they feel confident in. And we believe that education is the ticket.
Very good. Thank you all. Could you share a little bit about maybe some of the challenges facing you in this work at this time, specifically being in nonprofits and being, working towards education-related missions? What are some of the challenges?
I'm all happy to start this round, and we can just keep on going like it's a NFL draft order or something. Or I guess fantasy draft. I think in the NFL, they go back to the top. Anyway, challenges specifically for nonprofits right now. I didn't hear you say COVID in your question, Lindsay, so I'm not sure if you want to answers that really are specific to that, or just kind of more general.
Sure, you can
Okay.
share maybe specific to this time, but also maybe just in general,
Okay.
what the challenges in the community with education and nonprofits. Either one.
Yeah, I'll go general. So essentially, our challenge at UpSpring, I think, is to really get the word out about who we are and what we're doing and who we're serving. Quite often, when you ask someone, what does homelessness look like? Who is homeless? The first thing that comes to mind is a person at a highway exit holding a cardboard sign. And while that is all too common in our society, there are 8,000 children experiencing homelessness in Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky each year. And we don't see them because they're not on the street corner. Fortunately, children are very rarely living outdoors if they're homeless. Oftentimes the families are doubled up at another family member's house, couch surfing as it's known, or staying at a family shelter. So they're indoors and protected. But for us, it's about getting the message out there, and talking about the consequences that come with homelessness and how it affects education. I mentioned in the previous response that kids can change their schools 3 or 4 times a year. They may change their living situation up to 7 or 8 times a year. And those are average. So some of those statistics can be rather astounding. And that's our goal, is to get the word out there so that people know this is an issue And again, for UpSpring, we're a small 4-person nonprofit. We have 4 full-time employees. And so to get our name out there and to keep impacting students, we need community support. So that's one of the reasons that we love Magnified Giving as a partner, because you guys really help us with that, especially connecting with younger folks who are someday going to be older folks and be big influencers. And so that's really, for us, the biggest challenge.
And I would piggyback off of that a little bit. I mean, we are certainly at Stepping Stones much larger than UpSpring. However, I do think, we serve at least 16 counties locally and maybe more in terms of partnering with school districts through the StepUp program. And many county boards of developmental disability. So I think making sure all of the folks who make these types of decisions are aware of a program like StepUp, and that there is an alternative option for students who are not succeeding in traditional school is always a challenge. A lot of it, I guess, comes from word of mouth and from folks having a good experience from XYZ school district, so that the next time a situation arises where someone may be a good fit, they know to recommend Stepping Stones. And obviously we want it to be a mutual fit on behalf of, the student and their family or their caregiver, as well as Stepping Stones. So, and then, because people are constantly changing at schools and at other providers. So you're kind of always, you got some turnover. So just constantly keeping the word out there. The one COVID related thing I would mention as related to our StepUp program is that a huge pillar of our program is getting our students out into the community so they can work on social skills and life skills. So volunteer partnerships where they're, going into places and helping with certain tasks, or, just again, getting out in the community to get a little bit more accustomed to those types of environments. That has went obviously completely by the wayside for the past year. And so that's a challenge for any of us, right? We've all had to significantly change our patterns and our behaviors, but that can be extraordinarily disruptive if you have a significant disability, and particularly autism, where you're working every day to gain skills that maybe come quite easily to the rest of us. You really have a much higher likelihood for regression in that sense. So that has really, really challenged our program to not be able to get out in the community and keep working on those life skills that can't necessarily be developed in the classroom.
Yeah, listening to Alex and Kelly is really stressful for me. I feel their pain in a lot of what they've said. I think a challenge for us is, honestly, with COVID, our program is much better in person when we can engage speakers and mentors and things like that. There's some schools that will let me come in still because they know me, but they won't. I can't get guest speakers or things like that. And so we put a lot on video and those types of things to try and offset that. The other side effect of COVID is obviously fundraising. Our biggest fundraiser of the year, we canceled last year. It'll be online this year. Hopefully we can be more successful with it online. Now that, it literally got canceled the day before shutdowns. I think we had our semifinal event, which is 100 plus kids that are pitching business ideas. The day before that event was going to take place, the venue said, not happening. And so we literally, over 30 days, we had to completely readjust and change how we did everything. So the other side of that is the funding piece. Similar to everybody else, we chase after grants and things like that. I'm kind of lucky in a way, I guess you could say, or unlucky maybe. With our program being based on entrepreneurship, I really try to stay entrepreneurial myself. I do have a side business that I run just based on my experience with grant writing and nonprofit services. We do a little bit of grant writing, or a lot of grant writing, a little bit of social media, some light web stuff. We do that all on the side. So when SquareOne is down, hopefully a Noble can, my side company can keep things going and keep it balanced. The flip side of being entrepreneurial is that I'm my program competes with other programs, not really competes, but we complement a lot of programs that support entrepreneurship. And so when they hear what we're doing, they see the success that we're having in schools, and especially, where we get interest from funders, these entrepreneurs tend to see opportunity. And so we've had several other nonprofits that dabble in what we do, but don't go full force at the education piece and working with schools. They dabble in it, which makes it sometimes confusing for funders. Who's doing what? So somebody that puts on a week-long summer camp makes it difficult for us to raise money for our year-long program. So those things come into play. The other part, more programmatic-wise, is we do work with a lot of lower income schools. We try to focus on that. We sprinkle in, some parochial, some other types of schools. We think that's valuable when you talk about diversity and getting different mindsets in the same place, and having these students network with each other is great. The challenge is we're definitely get different perspectives, and we're definitely, our lesson we teach here isn't the same that we teach there. And in some places, we have a really hard time getting them to embrace the idea of entrepreneurship because they don't have some of the, social, emotional skills that have them believing in themselves, that they can do it, that they can succeed. So we really need to figure out how to fill that gap for the kids that we work with. We're working on some partnerships now, but it's not like snap your fingers, okay, everybody's on the same playing field, right? Mm-hmm. And then again, I agree with Alex. Awareness is huge. I think to make sure we're spreading the word, because Alex, you say you're small with 4 people. It's kind of just me. I do have one other person that helps me, Colin Mayfield, who works for Channel 5. He does the morning news, and then the afternoon he's mine. So he helps me out a little bit and visits schools, but a lot of schools, their school day starts earlier and he's on the air. So we're working on that now to try and get me some additional support. But, it'd be nice that if everybody knew what we were doing. And like I said earlier, if one of our complementary organizations runs a program similar to ours, it'd be nice if the community, everybody knew about us and they said, oh, well, are you working with SquareOne on this? That would be ideal because we love partnerships. And when we work with Magnified Giving and the Y, we're working on a relationship with the YMCA. We're going to do a summer camp with Inner Alliance, who's has some similar programs to ours. Working in the nonprofit to nonprofit, it works out great, except when you mix in the entrepreneurship piece and the economic development piece, then it's very territorial.
Yeah. Thank you all for sharing those things. That's good. What advice would you give to a student in 2021, hearing your challenges, hearing the work that you're doing? What advice would you give to a student who is interested in kind of pitching in on this effort to move education forward and support people through education? How can they get involved, maybe in your organizations, but also just in general? How can they get involved, and where should they start?
Okay, draft order again. Fantasy draft order again.
I got the best slot of this, by the way.
I would say that, they're in a unique position because they're going through this program, and I have 3 kids and I listen to their complaints every day when they get home from school, the things that they like to be different. One complains because her homework is obviously busy work. It's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of things that she knows, and she's a smart girl. So she gets really frustrated with that. And, they all complain about, well, I don't know, my son kind of loves school. He loves being there. It's odd. But I think for them to continue to voice their opinions, if they can work with nonprofits like the 3 represented here and help them, make their voice louder on things they'd like to see changed in education, things that they, programs that they love, that they think should be in the school. And I think what Magnified Giving is doing is fantastic because it does allow those opportunities, opens those doors to those nonprofits so these kids are learning about it. Because I don't know, I think back, people ask me how I ended up an entrepreneur, and I can't really say, everybody kind of thinks when they're growing up, oh, I want to own my own business, but they don't really know what that means or what steps you have to take or what, a lot of people are thinking pizza shop or pet grooming or flower shop when they're in grade school. And that's, there's a lot of those types of businesses. We try to put an innovative spin on it and help people think differently about where they want to go. right? So to challenge those kids to continue to think innovatively about education, how they can get involved, I think is the biggest role that we can play in this.
So I think kids today are right. It's going to be fascinating to see how not only the last year with COVID, but really the last several years will shape them, I think. And you know, obviously as a country, we've went through a very charged time politically. Kids growing up right now are going through things that most of us did not experience growing up, right? None of us have experienced a pandemic. So from that perspective, I'm really fascinated to see how this shapes kids' interests. I've already read a number of articles talking about, you know, the rise in interest in public health careers and really a rise in nonprofit interest in general, because these students are living through a time where they're seeing people with extraordinary needs. So even if they're not, you know, interested in public health, you know, they're seeing people that are having homelessness as a result of everything that's going on, or experiencing hunger, or so many things. And so I think they're going to grow up, I hope, like a lot more empathetic than maybe, you know, if there's any silver lining to come out of everything, maybe they will grow up a little bit more empathetic. And with, you know, unfortunately, they're going to have more of a worldview than I think a lot of us probably did. And so I'm obviously a huge fan of being in a nonprofit career because, you know, I have the perspective of I'm going to do this every day for what, 40 some years if I'm lucky to get out in my 60s. And, you know, I want to go to work every day and have purpose. And for me, I don't think there's a greater purpose than serving a nonprofit and, you know, seeing that impact on a day-to-day basis. So what I would just encourage is just to experience as much of that as you can, and to really, you know, most kids nowadays obviously have service hours and all those things they have to complete, but to not view it as just an opportunity, you know, as a requirement, as a, I have to check this box, to really try to experience it. And even if you don't find yourself inclined to go into a nonprofit career, find out what sparks your passion, because anyone who's been in a career for any amount of time will tell you, you know, hey, like I said, 40 years is a long time, and you want to be able to, I think, feel inspired by what you're doing. So certainly getting involved to whatever extent you can with as many nonprofits as you can when you're in school and through programs like Magnified Giving is really only going to help you find out, you know, what sparks your passion.
I'll say again, I'm biased. I think everyone should be in education. I think it's the most important profession we have. Keith talked about being a parent. That's the first educator you have in your life is your parents who teach you so many things about how to survive and about how to thrive. And so that's what I always try to say to young folks who are trying to figure out how to make an impact in their life. Be a teacher, be a nonprofit, education nonprofit worker. Dedicate your life to it. Why not? I'm enjoying it. I'm happy. I'm impacting lives. Let me be a role model for you, as well as Kelly and Keith here. But you know, maybe you're thinking, okay, that's not the career for me. I think back to that earlier point, try to adopt education into your own life. When you see someone that is in a space that needs to learn, is ready to learn, help teach them, be a mentor to someone younger than you. As a high school student, I think there's opportunities to tutor in grades younger than yours. Or once you get into college, there's definitely tutoring opportunities available. That's one of the first jobs I had as a college student, was tutoring kids at a local elementary school. So there's so many opportunities, whether it's volunteering or even, you know, paid positions, to get involved in other young people's lives and help teach them and help expand their worldview and give them skills that they need. So, you know, those are ways to get involved. Also, just volunteering at organizations like the three of ours, Stepping Stone, SquareOne, and UpSpring. I'm sure at your annual event that you mentioned, Keith, you require volunteers to pull that off, or, you know, so consider volunteering for opportunities like that. And once you kind of find a nonprofit that you really like, just, you know, stay in tune with them, what their needs are, and you can have reoccurring opportunities to volunteer, to give, to increase other people's knowledge. We mentioned it as one of our challenges is getting the word out. So yeah, there's lots of ways to pitch in. And I'm sure if you reached out to folks at Magnified Giving or any of us on the panel, we could talk even more about ways to get involved and to participate. So we hope that you do have a passion for education, and hope to see you in one of our nonprofit shops soon to helping out.
Yes, that's great advice. Very good. Awesome. Well, I think that is a great and inspiring place to end, kind of with all of those things bearing in mind, students, for those of you watching, just great action points and things to think about. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. I'd love to thank Alex, Kelly, and Keith for sharing their expertise and their experience with us today. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everyone.